Greetings, geeks, and hello, Wax Packers. This is Adam coming at you with a special edition of Wax Pack Flashback. Now, this is actually a special video series that is being simulcast, if you will, between both YouTube channels, the TRN TV, which is the Retro Network YouTube channel, and Wizards, the podcast guide to comics. Why? Well, because I am the host of Wizards, the podcast guide to comics, but I'm also a part of the Wax Pack Flashback series on TRN TV, where we open up vintage packs of trading cards from the 80s and 90s. It's all about nostalgia, whichever way you look at it, but it is apropos that this is a crossover, because that just happens to be the topic of what we're talking about today. Now, in the world of comic books, crossovers are nothing new between comics titles at the same publisher, but to have Marvel and DC, the two biggest rivals in the comic book industry, teaming up was a pretty big deal. Now, this pack of cards we're talking about today was from 1995, but this isn't the first time that DC and Marvel had teamed up. As you can see here, this is actually a collected edition of all the times that DC and Marvel had gotten together. Spider-Man and Superman had actually gotten together in two different adventures. The Hulk and Batman, you had the Teen Titans and the X-Men. I mean, it was pretty crazy. So it was a wild time, but those were mostly happening in the early 80s and the late 70s. And then it kind of cooled off for a while. So in 1995, there was a downturn in the market. The comics had been super popular from like 1990 until about 1994. And then, and so the two publishers were looking for a way to get excitement going again. And so they came up with Marvel versus DC, or DC versus Marvel. And so this was an event where they actually had these characters face off with one another. Yes, the iconic characters that you know and love were battling it out. It was a 4-part miniseries. It was very special. Now, they also decided that they were going to release a series of trading cards to coincide with this, to build the hype, right? To get excited. Now, I was already collecting Marvel Universe trading cards and DC trading cards, so to put them together and magically come up with DC versus Marvel trading cards, this was very exciting, okay? So this was an awesome pack of cards to grab off the counter at your local comic book store or trading card store back in the day. But this was very short-lived because it wasn't super exciting at the time, or rather it was exciting for comic book fans, but maybe didn't catch the attention of everybody in the world. So these cards are a little bit more rare. In fact, they're not cheap to pick up a pack, okay? Like, this is a personal investment for me just because I love this moment in time so much. We're covering it on Wizards, the podcast guide to comics. And I'll get back with you at the end and tell you about another related card series, but let's dig into the pack. Come on. All right, so here we are, ready to start talking about these DC versus Marvel Comics trading cards. But first, I wanted to share with you a little bit of the hype that was going on around the release of these cards and just the event itself. Here you have from Wizard News in Wizard Magazine, Marvel versus DC, a massive universe crossover. It was something that people just couldn't believe was going to happen on this scale. You know, these showdowns that people have been imagining for years, the battle of the century. I mean, they had a whole press conference that was at a Planet Hollywood, and here you had actual live models of the characters. So that was exciting, but not just in the comics press, but also in the comic books themselves. Here you have from an issue of Spider-Man, the battle of the century, which was definitely their tagline for this, right? The full ad for the trading cards coming this December. They gave you some of the featured matchups there. But as we look at this pack of cards, you'll see here it says 8 cards, 1 ballot. And the ballots were all over the place. They were coming packed in with Wizard Magazine and other things like that. So they would actually, fold up, you'd get it out, and you'd be like, oh, wow, who am I going to choose? So these were the major bouts they wanted you to decide, right? Batman versus Captain America, Hulk versus Superman, Superboy versus Spider-Man, Wolverine versus Lobo, and Wonder Woman versus Storm. Okay, so there again, you could actually put this all together, check off who you thought should win. But what's interesting is you could also vote online. So this was like a time where the internet was becoming a big deal. Of course, they also wanted you to pick up the issues of the comic so you could see the results of what was going to go on. But let's get into this pack a little bit more here. We have Superboy from the Reign of the Superman event. That's where he was introduced. He was a clone. So there's a little bit of, the hype behind that kind of coming back to bear. But if you look here, this hand right there is the Spider-Man hand. And so you can actually, I believe, put all these packs together and form a full image. That, or it was just pulled from a card where he was facing off against Spider-Man. So maybe we'll find out. If you see here where it tells you, let's get ready to rumble, DC and Marvel go head to head, and you not only get to witness the battle of the century, you get involved. When Marvel's Fab Five goes up against DC's Dream Team, it will be your vote that determines who walks away and who gets walked on. So fill out your ballot to decide which heroes win these 5 title bouts, then pick up Marvel versus DC number 3 to find out who's still standing when the dust clears. So yeah, definitely try to get you excited, just like all those pay-per-view boxing events. These are real thick. I mean, these are heavy-duty cards and heavy-duty packs. But here it says, as far as the limited edition cards, you can get 18 Impact cards, 12 Holo FX cards, 2 Mirage cards, and there's actually another series that comes after this that we'll get into called Amalgam. But right now, it's time that we find out what was hiding inside. Let's see if we can open up this pack. Ooh, look at that. Golden, beautiful. Let's see if we got any chase cards in here. Okay, so first up, we have Dr. Polaris versus Magneto. So they are both the masters of magnetism in their universes. Now, the fun thing about these card sets is they actually had commentary from either Peter Parker or Clark Kent talking about the other people in the universe. So this is Peter Parker saying, either of these masters of magnetism would test the metal of any hero. In saying Dr. Polaris is a heavy-duty threat, but it's possible Magneto is even more dangerous in his fanatical methods of protecting mutant kind from oppression. All right, so we got that one. Oh, there he is, my favorite, Tim Drake Robin. But look at where he's at. The Xavier Institute for Higher Learning. Yes, he was facing off against Jubilee in this particular series. It says here, it'd be easy to dismiss Batman's teen sidekick as just a kid, but I'm wall-crawling proof. You don't have to be muscle-bound bruiser in order to be a hero. Robin is a force to be reckoned with, either on his own or partnered with the Dark Knight. Speaking of which, we got Batman versus Bullseye. So before Batman was taking on Captain America, I guess he was battling Bullseye, who you might recall from the Daredevil films. So this is interesting here. So the art here also was by some of the top artists. Ooh, look, there it is, guys, right there. So matching up with the imagery on the pack itself. That's so cool. So we got Spider-Man versus Superboy. Now, the cool thing here I want to mention, like, not only is this just beautiful, who painted this? Oh, Joe Jusko, I should have known. He's a very famous painter. So this tells you this is part 9. The final battles continue with 2 super slugfests as Superman faces his punch-for-punch equal in the Hulk. And the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man meets Superboy, the new kid on the block. At this time, though, remember how I mentioned that Superboy was a clone of Superman in the Reign of the Supermen? Well, Spider-Man was also a clone at this time named Ben Reilly. That's why the costume is a little different. Peter Parker had retired, at least the Peter Parker we had followed. There was a whole Michigan, as you recall, the clone saga. But so we had 2 clones facing off against each other. That's just a really cool card. I think that's awesome. Okay, ooh. Now you have Steel versus Iron Man. Again, from the Reign of the Supermen, Steel was one of those characters that carried on after as a hero. What does Peter Parker say about this? Now here's somebody to give old Shellhead a little competition in the heavy metal department. The Golden Avenger, Iron Man, and the hammer-wielding Steel both carry out their war against crime-clad in high-tech suits of armor. That is a good matchup there. Oh, speaking of which, check this out now. Aquaman versus Neymar. Yes, those kings of the sea, right? So that's pretty neat. Wow, that's awesome. And that was, who is this artist? Orbic. I've never heard of Orbic or Benchman Studios. Oh, Blackman Studios. Blackman. Blackman. That sounds like he would have been in one of the Marvel Comics comedy magazines with Forbush Man. Blackman. Brand Ech. Anyway. Ooh. Here we go, the Joker. You guys know him, but look, he's holding the Daily Bugle. He's at J. Jonah Jameson's desk. It says, nobody could have this much to smile about. The Joker's probably crazier than any of the wackos I usually spar with, and that's saying something. He's more than crazy, he's downright evil. Definitely the last guy I'd want to run into. So that's really neat. Look at who did the CGI. Electric Pickle. Where's their CGI here? I don't even... Oh, I guess the very background of the sky. Okay, and finally here, Hawkeye versus Green Arrow. Not a Hawkeye costume I recognize from this era. This was actually the original Green Lantern's son, Connor Hawke. So let's see what Clark Kent has to say about this. Even a man of steel couldn't save the first Emerald Archer from death. Oh, so Oliver Queen was dead at this time. His successor, apparently his son, carries on the tradition of Green Arrow. Maybe he could pick up a few pointers from the Avenger Hawkeye, another expert archer who never misses his target. So nice. And that is all the cards here, but we did have this Marvel vs. DC ballot. Ooh, look, it's still sealed. Ah, oh, and I'm tearing it as I open it. Man, that was heavy duty glue. Man, okay, yeah, so much for that. Glad I have so many more of these because they were so hard to get away from at the time. You could pick them up anywhere. But there you go, guys. There is our pack of Marvel vs. DC trading cards. Let's close this thing out. All right, so that was pretty cool, right? I really, really enjoyed going through that pack. It's pretty exciting. We didn't get any chase cards, but some of the art itself was special enough, right? So speaking of which, if I had to choose my favorite card from that set, I'd have to go with this Joe Jusko Superboy versus Spiderman card. I mean, just the painted art, but I mean, there's a lot of painted art out there. Joe Jusko just has something special that he brings to the table. He did the original Marvel Masterpieces trading card series, and then many years later got to do it again. So that's pretty cool. Plus the fact that it actually matched up with this image that they pulled it for the trading card pack design. Like, that's just really neat there. But I teased at the beginning that there was another related trading card set, right? So with DC versus Marvel, the big deal was, okay, we're fighting each other, but it's more than just a crossover to battle. It's actually going to be a crossover where the universes will merge, okay? And I'll get into more detail in the next video, but I will tell you that there was a follow-up trading card series called Amalgam. What is Amalgam? If you don't know, you'll find out soon enough. If you do know, get ready for some fun. But in the meantime, make sure you're subscribed to TRN TV and Wizards, the podcast guide to comics on YouTube. Both channels bring all sorts of awesome content on a regular basis. If you like the trading cards, if you like old comics, if you loved Wizard Magazine, man, there's so much for you to enjoy and explore. So, until next time, we'll check you later.